Hello, and I want to welcome you back to this segment of 5 Minutes with KeRusso. We're in the process of trying to understand this letter of Philippians, and recently, in the last 3 videos, we've taken a look at the historical context of this letter. This was a letter that was written to a church that was going through a fiery trial of suffering, and there was opposition that they were facing inside and out. Started from the outside, but it worked its way inside. So now that the body wasn't standing together anymore, they weren't unified. They were divided inside this little church here in Philippi. And Paul was writing them a letter, trying to give them guidance so they can get back to being one, being united, and bringing glory to God. What does this letter have to say to us? I want to share something with you, a couple of the texts in Philippians to help you start seeing that. And let this just kind of spark your thinking so that you can go all the way through this letter and see all of its relevance. In chapter 1, there's a prayer that Paul prays for these Christians at the beginning of the letter, and it gives focus to what he's really trying to do in this by writing this letter to them. If you read it there, and starting in verse 9 of chapter 1, this is the prayer. Paul writes, "And this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best, and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God." Now that's just a beautiful prayer that can be prayed at any given time for any group of people. But this was a prayer that Paul was praying for that group of people in their particular circumstances of suffering and experiencing division within the church. Go back and read those verses and spend some time thinking about those verses within the historical context of this letter. And what is that prayer telling you? What are you picking up on those verses? What kind of guidance is Paul giving that makes that prayer very powerful and potent? Ask those kind of questions and spend some time thinking about that prayer. Just what does it mean to be able to discern what is best and pure? Or what does it mean to pray that somebody's love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight? How does that apply to that church? Now, this is a thread that runs all the way through this letter. In fact, when you get to the end of the letter, before Paul starts saying some personal things about the relationship he has with those Christians, he has this to say in chapter 4 and verse 8. "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you've learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you." Again, this is a text that we read and we apply to all kinds of situations, and we can. But if we can read this text and understand it in its historical context, then we're going to gain a whole lot more out of it, and we'll probably see a lot more application to it. Why is Paul telling these people to whatever is pure and true and noble and whatever, those are the things to think about? What does he mean by the God of peace will be with you? Read it in its historical context, and you'll start to understand something that possibly escaped your understanding before. And you might even understand why this is a particularly relevant letter for us. Think about this nation, the United States. All the division that is going on because of racial turmoil, because of how people feel about a virus and a pandemic and being forced to shelter in the home, about politics, how all this has infected this nation and divided this nation, and how that has got into the church, so that the church oftentimes is divided. Maybe Paul's telling us we need to focus on something else besides what's dominating the thinking of our nation. Maybe we need to zero in and look at what really is important because of Jesus Christ. I believe Philippians has something to say to us now that's important for us to hear. Spend some time with these texts in its historical context and see what you discover. May you be blessed. Leave a comment if you'd like to, or send an email at booksbykerusso@gmail.com. We'll see you next time with some more from Philippians.